Yeah, folks, I'm going to try to kind of cook slow enough that you can cook along at home, but certainly, if you got any questions on anything that I'm doing culinary wise while I'm working here, throw a question in the chat. We'll try to catch them as they come through. But I think we'll probably save a lot of nutrition conversation more towards the end after we do a little intro, I think.
Yeah, we'll see kind of how the time goes, and I'll try to answer some on the fly, but it'd be great to put those in the chat, and then we'll get to them at the end if you have any big questions you want answered.
Perfect. Okay. You want to get started? All righty.
So hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Smilow Shares webinar, Chop and Chat with Max. This is the second of 3 webinars we offered this month. As you may know, June is Survivorship Month, and every year our Smilow Survivorship Clinic hosts a series of educational webinars geared at a variety of different topics. And tonight we wanted to create a more interactive experience with you and hopefully help you gain some knowledge regarding how to fuel your body after a cancer diagnosis, and also gain confidence in the kitchen to then be able to put that action and plan in the kitchen. So briefly, before we get started, we're just going to do some introductions. So I'm Natalie Smith. I'm an oncology dietitian at Smilow. I offer nutrition counseling as part of the Smilow Integrated Medicine program and also Smilow Survivorship program. And then go ahead, Max.
Yeah. And then, hey, everyone. I'm Max Goldstein. I'm also a registered dietitian as well as a trained chef. I run all of the operations and all of our patient-facing classes here in our teaching kitchen. For those of you who don't know, the teaching kitchen is located in North Haven, actually right across the street from the Smilow Clinic. We're 8 Divine Street instead of 6 Divine. But yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this tonight. We're gonna, like Natalie said, we're gonna do a little bit of education at the beginning. Then we'll jump into the cooking, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end as well. Certainly happy to answer any questions you might have in the kitchen, and then we can connect further offline if we have to.
All right, if you can go to the next slide. So before we get to fun of the cooking tonight, I just wanted to go over some general nutrition guidelines that I review with oncology survivors every single day in clinic. So number 1, we want to encourage our patients to maintain a healthy body weight or work towards achieving a healthy body weight. Obesity, being overweight, is linked to many different types of cancers and also diabetes risk, high cholesterol, heart disease. So in general, we're looking to help patients achieve a healthier weight after a diagnosis to improve their overall health. Okay. Number 2 is exercise, moving your body, right? Movement can help. So building muscle, building lean body mass can help with strength, stamina, energy, which can be limited after a cancer diagnosis and treatment. So moving our body is so key. 3 is eating a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. These things are rich in fiber, right? So the recommendation is to get 25 to 35 grams of dietary fiber each day. And in America, I think we average around 10 to maybe 15 grams of fiber. So we definitely have work to do in that department. And we know that adequate fiber intake helps reduce many different types of cancers, disease states, improve our colon health. So the list goes on. 4th is limiting our fast food and highly processed foods. So the ones we get in the takeout line, ones at convenience stores, every corner, these things are packed with lots of fat, sugar, sodium, calories, things that are going to increase our risk of developing obesity, being overweight, and then linking us to many different diseases and risk factors. 5, limiting our intake of red and processed meats. So many people aren't aware that processed meats such as bacon, deli meat, sausage, prosciutto, consumption of those types of foods are linked directly to colorectal cancer. So in clinic, I'm always educating patients to try to replace the standard deli meats, those very convenient choices, with things like tuna, eggs, grilled chicken, rotisserie chicken, versus just going to the deli and relying on bacon and sausage to provide most of our protein for the day. And then limiting red meat. So overconsumption of red meat, so that's your beef, pork, and lamb. We want to try to limit that to 12 ounces, between less than 12 to 18 ounces a week, to just improve our GI health and reduce our overall risk. Next is sugar sweetened drinks. So it's everywhere, right? It's these Prime drinks, it's Gatorade, it's juices, sodas, Dunkin' Donuts, fancy drinks, Starbucks, right? All these things are so loaded with added sugars, which don't provide much nutritional value, really only calories and sugar, which increases our risk of diabetes, obesity, weight gain, and then in turn is linked to increased cancer risk. 7 is alcohol. I know we like to try to protect our alcohol consumption because it's relaxing, it's something social that we do, but it's important to know that alcohol is a carcinogen, right? It is linked to many different types of cancers. So I do educate patients day to day on how to significantly reduce their alcohol intake and maybe try to avoid it altogether. And lastly, avoid using supplements for cancer prevention. So I see this question every day. What supplements can I take? What vitamins can I take to improve my health? And I really try to lead the conversation back to doing more healthy foods and getting the benefit from the food sources. So all these guidelines I should have mentioned are from the American Institute for Cancer Research, which is a huge research organization. It has a plethora of information. If you go to their website, aicr.org, it has tons of preventative nutrition recommendations, guidelines, nice little competitions and kind of ways to track progress. So I highly recommend, if you haven't been to this website, check it out for some extra resources for yourself. Okay, next slide. So this was a great visual that I also provide to many patients in Survivorship Clinic at Yale. This is the New American Plate, and I don't know if it's dispersed out there in the media, but this was created by the AICR organization. And this is really what we should try to mimic our plates to look like at every meal. So you're going to see that 2/3 of this plate is plant-based foods. It's your whole grains, it's your fruits, your vegetables. You're going to see that there's multiple colors of vegetables on this plate. There's not just one. So it's trying to get those vibrant colors on the plate to really help protect us on many different levels. 1/3 of the plate is going to be your animal protein. So that's your chicken, your steak, your fish, tuna, eggs, all those fantastic things. But we really want to try to make 2/3 of that plate plant-based if possible to get that fiber, phytochemical content, all the antioxidants, all those protective things that we need in the diet. So you're going to see from tonight, the recipe that we chose to do, there was a lot of thought put into it because we want to try to mimic this plate for you. We want to show you how to put this into action in the kitchen and how to get the most out of your cooking. So I think that's it. So we'll get
Perfect
started.
segue. Yeah. So want to pull down the PowerPoint there, and then if we do stop sharing at the top there. And then, folks, I just want to make sure you're able to see us on the full view. Looks like we're good though. Perfect. All righty. Well, in that case, then, hey, welcome to the Teaching Kitchen. Much wider view for everybody here. So, we do all of our patient classes in person currently. However, actually starting over the summer, we're going to be doing some virtual classes as well, which I'm really excited about. That'll kind of be of a similar setup to the way that this one's going to run tonight. So you'll see here in front of me, right, I got my cooktop, I got all my ingredients laid out. I should have shouted her out earlier, but Michelle is operating the cameras tonight, so thank you, Michelle. If you hear me refer to a third ambiguous person in the room, that's her. Actually, Michelle, do you want to zoom in on the cutting board here, and so folks can get a little bit better look at the ingredients that we're using tonight? And I believe that everyone should have gotten a copy of the recipe out ahead of time, but we're doing a shrimp and pineapple stir fry tonight. So you'll see, right, all nice bright colors. We do have, of course, some animal protein on here. We have our nice shrimp, which we'll talk a little bit about both food safety when it comes to shrimp, but as well as some multiple. But you see a couple ingredients that I need to make this really nice, simple for it. The rest of this tray is my plant food. I got a lot of vegetables as well as pineapple sweetness. So yeah, go ahead, I'll pull this off. Like I said, as folks were joining the room, I'm going to kind of try to move slow enough that if you are interested in home, you can. But we'll take enough pauses that even if you're just watching, you can follow what I'm doing. While I'm doing that, I'll kind of narrate what I'm doing. Natalie and I'll chime in with some nutrition tidbits here and there, and then I think we'll be good to go. So my first thing, because I know I work fast enough to do it, I'm actually going to get my my pan preheating here. Reason being is because this is a stir fry. The nice thing is once we get all of our prep out of the way, everything comes together really quickly. It'll cook really fast, so it makes a really nice, simple, and quick wheat you can make for yourself. So I'll get that pan preheating now so that it really has enough time to heat up. But we will start like any good recipe with some of our skills here. So anytime that I'm chopping anything, we got our onion here. Anytime I'm chopping anything round, I always want to try to get to that nice flat surface. Flat things can't roll around on us, which means they're safe on our cutting board. And then there's a million different styles of chef knife. Ultimately, you got to pick up the tool that's going to feel best for you in your hand. But a good solid chef's knife like this has got that nice wide handle that you can really grip onto, and it's good for 99% of the things that you're going to be doing in the kitchen. So I'm going to go ahead and chop this onion in half here. At that point now, you'll notice some of these loose little papers falling on my board, but I recommend if you're not comfortable using the knife to pick things up, having a little scraper here is really handy. And I'll then save those vegetable scraps that I don't use today. Actually, in the recipe, I will go ahead and save for vegetables. And Natalie, I'll grab a bag of my vegetable scraps out of the freezer here. But I mean, there's a lot of reasons that we'd want to make our own vegetable stock, right? As opposed to maybe buying one from the grocery store.
Make it at home, you're gonna have a lot less sodium, a lot less fat, right? Much simpler ingredients, fresher ingredients. So that's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. So I save all those vegetable scraps. Then I put them in a big gallon bag. I freeze them. They will pretty much last. I don't want to say forever in your freezer, but they'll last a really long time in your freezer. And what you can do then is throw them into a pot, cover with some water, boil, and then simmer for a few hours, and then you will be good to go on some nice homemade vegetable stock. So I'm getting my onion peeled up here. I chopped off just that top end of the onion. You'll notice as I'm peeling it, right, that root end I still got intact, which will be really important in a moment. I'll go ahead and chop off my other one here. And there's this term, right, in French cooking called mise en place. It means everything in its place, which people, oftentimes, of course, use to refer to cooking. But I think you wanted to expand that metaphor a little bit to everything in your life, right? I think there's a lot of benefit of having that good knowledge base and the school and the skill set to actually then take advantage of that. So the kind of stuff that as dietitians we like to reinforce with people. So then I got this onion half. Like I said, I still got that root end intact. I'm going to go ahead and cut this into a small dice, which is I'm taking the tip of that knife and just pushing it straight down to the cutting board about 80, 90% of the way to that root end, which then allows up this layers, which is good because then I turn it 90 degrees so that that root is on the opposite side of where my knife is. And then I can go ahead and chop through those and I get these nice, even sized pieces. We've done first classes for folks who have gone through treatment with Smilow, and I think one of the main things, sometimes a barrier to the maybe changing some eating habits is not do things. The worst part right now is when you find a recipe online and after like 45 minutes you're still chopping vegetables. Is absolutely the worst. So
save it on your phone, or you save it in the book and you never get to it because you're overwhelmed by
exactly.
what you do.
Yeah. So it looked like there were a lot of ingredients on my tray there, but all the recipes that we're doing in the teaching kitchen is that they're really good for us, nutritional aspect. And of course, I want to make sure they taste good because food should taste good and be enjoyed. But then the third kind of pillar there is that they're not, there's no barrier to entry, right? It's not, you might not have access to, or techniques that you're maybe not familiar with, right? So even though my knife skills are, I think, pretty good, right? Any amount of cooking you can do in the kitchen to get a little bit more confident with it will be a benefit to you. So I got my onion diced up there. Now I want my bell pepper down to around the same size. People always, comes to onions, they're just like, oh, that's a flavor building thing, right? Flavor building ingredient, but our bell pepper has a ton of nutrition.
The other thing is too, keep in mind with this recipe that if you've gone through treatment, that's what we want to kind of bring attention to tonight too, is not a one size doesn't fit all, right?
Yeah.
So especially after those treatments, you're on oral medications, maybe long-term for your cancer management. I think it's just important to recognize that if peppers don't sit well, if peppers cause GI distress, you can keep it out, right? Find something else to replace that with. So throughout the night, if you have concerns, you're looking for swaps, we can offer that guidance too. So I think it's important to tag team for myself and Max to really help you make it achievable and make it realistic for what works for you.
Absolutely. So you'll notice what I was doing there with the bell pepper as I cut it is I had it standing upright, and I like to kind of think of the bell pepper like a house. So I chopped off one of those walls of the house. It's a nice large plank of bell pepper, and then if you do that, you kind of go around the outside. You get your whole seed pod here without getting seeds all over your cutting board. So and throw it into my oh yeah, the seed cutting board is one of those like rice pack, like when you're getting into cooking. And so now I got a bell pepper that I want to get diced the same size as my onion there. So what I will do is I'm going to cut this into some strips first. And now for this, I always like to, anytime I'm cutting bell pepper, I like to do it with the skin side down to the cutting board. It's a little easier through, just upright. We got these into these nice long strips. You can bunch them up. And then I will actually use the flat side of my knife there to kind of line up those pieces. And then you could chop them one at a time, but I like to kind of do multiple at once. And the reason that I'm trying to get things to a same size is because they're going to cook evenly. These bell pepper and onion are going to go into my pan at the same time. And so I want those to be evenly sized so that they cook evenly, but then also, a little bit of vanity, right? Pretty food looks good. Pretty food, obviously, it looks good, and then it makes us a little more inclined to be interested in trying something maybe for the first time. And I think, we can derive a little bit of nutrition knowledge when we're talking about the benefits of like a pretty looking plate, right? Like, 'cause what's the expression that you should eat the rainbow? Yeah. So, do you want to explain a little bit? Eat the rainbow means?
Well, you go to the grocery store, out the same three fruits, right, or the same three vegetables, because that's what you're comfortable with, and if you're not realizing that, those same three things every week are providing the same three nutrients, variety of antioxidants, right? So opening up that color, like colors can really help protect you in many different ways. We know that specific colors are specific health, health needs. So, carrots, orange color, the vitamin C, good for eye, vitamin A, vitamin C, good for eye, right? So it's just, there's such a variety that we're not tapping into nutrition, and into red peppers, green, yellow peppers, variety of those antioxidants and phytochemicals while getting that dietary fiber.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think people, think about, right, like it's actually, it can be really easy to kind of get everything you need from the diet without having to rely. Not that there's anything wrong with taking multivitamin if you're worried, but, if you eat a nice variety of colors, you're going to hit a really good basis of vitamins and minerals that you're trying to get to.
Just fill in the gap.
Exactly.
Get primarily for the diet and different supplements to fill those gaps.
Exactly. So work on broccoli. Now, my broccoli is going to end up being a little bigger than some of my other. Reason being is because this is a shrimp and pineapple stir fry, but I want every bite to be able to really have that nice like crunch of a vegetable on there as well. So I'm going to chop this broccoli into some florets, and then I'll cut these down to size a little bit more. But I want them to actually end up being around the same size as my when they in the pan. So I got larger florets here. I might go ahead and maybe chop these into thirds a little bit, maybe fourths on some of these larger ones. Now, broccoli versus one of those, you can even tell by the way I have to kind of, right? I'm putting a little more force to it. It's definitely a little bit more of one of our like fibrous vegetables. Why do we love fiber so much? I know you talked about it a little bit before, but
again, to regulate bowel movement, so cleaning out the gut on a regular basis can reduce, problems from developing in the gut. You also lower cholesterol levels with adequate fiber, and regulate blood sugar levels and prevent risk of pre-diabetes, diabetes, helps you feel full, provides, it just really kind of helps with weight loss goals and helping just sustain you, right? You can fill your stomach up with a cup of broccoli and get, a fraction of the calories versus if you were doing, a meat-based meal or, that processed meal. So you're really up on those nutrients that are also very low in calories. A great benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it might be worth mentioning because sometimes, we as dietitians, we get all sorts of questions. Fiber is only found in plants. The way that I kind of like to explain to people sometimes is animals of the skeletal system, right? Plants have fiber. So it's providing a nice structure to them. So that's why, again, broccoli stems were so nice and crunchy because they were filled with.
If you stuck in your teeth, it's rich in fiber.
I like that.
Skins on grapes and, raisins and seeds, nuts, things like that. All very fiber rich, which is all great things.
Yep. And so the last thing I'm going to chop right now, kind of in my early tiers, I got my broccoli, my bell pepper, my onion. I'm going to go ahead and peel and chop this carrot as well. Now, if for whatever reason, if you weren't going to save the scraps of this carrot, I always say, put a paper towel down on your cutting board. It makes it really easy because then you just peel all your scraps right into that paper towel. And I usually tell folks to kind of have one end of that carrot down into your cutting board while you're peeling it. Same thing applies for a parsnip or a potato or anything else you're doing, right? Scariest thing I see are holding the carrot like this and they're doing these crazy peels on it. So I like to try to reinforce, obviously among everything else that we're doing in here, right? That little bit of kitchen safety. Hey, look, I've seen all sorts of what I'll say some suspect knife skills sometimes. But now that that's what I want to do is I'm going to cut this to be around the same size as those pieces of bell pepper and onion. So again, this carrot's rolling around on me. I'm going to cut those in half so that they lay flat. And then from here, I'll kind of cut these into, I like these little half moon shapes. So I think we'll go ahead and do those.
One other thing I constantly go over with patients is, they ask about juicing and smoothies, right? And kind of juicing carrots and celery and broccoli. And I'm wondering if that's what they should be doing to improve their overall health, right? And prevent the cancer from coming back. And, common recommendation I give is, you really eliminate a lot of that benefit of the fiber content, right? When you're blending everything and making it easier for your body to take in and process. So crunching on a carrot is much different than drinking carrot juice that you blend and you put into a cup. So trying to eat these things in whole food form and adding that additional benefit of fiber is huge.
Yeah, I think an easy way to think about that is like orange juice, right? Like you don't have to chew on orange juice when you're drinking it. Oranges are even super fiber to begin with. Yeah, benefits, definitely there. So, Michelle, if we want to move the camera over to the cooktop here. So, I get some nice toys with here sometimes. I got a non-stick wok here, which is really good for this kind of high heat cooking. And you'll see it's been heating for a while now, so you might be able to smoke coming off of there. You can absolutely make this recipe in any kind of like large skillet. I would definitely recommend something that's got a higher edge because you're going to end up piling a lot in there. But something that you feel comfortable really giving a nice stir or a nice toss to. I have this one just happens to be non-stick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour about half of my sesame oil in there. Let that heat up for a minute. Now, anytime that we're cooking with oil, we can actually get away with using a lot less oil than I think we often do. And I know we said some comments coming through that they couldn't quite hear Natalie super well. So
I'm just fixing the mic, so let's see if I can adjust it to be a little better.
That's the reality of live TV sometimes. So I got nice oil in there. What I'm going to do, and now I'm going to toss in my onion. Immediately I get that nice sizzle on there. That's a great indication that our oil is hot enough. The reason that I stress, the importance of hot is that it'll immediately start the cooking process as opposed to our food sitting in there, kind of getting greased by that oil. And so what I want to do anytime that I'm cooking with a with a wok or even just in a regular old saute pan, but when I'm doing cooking, I don't want things to sit for too long. You can see now, even that bottom layer of onion that I had down there has already started to pick up a little bit of color. So I'm gonna let this sit for maybe 10, 15 seconds at a time, and then I'll come in and I'll give it a little toss.
Also, just let me know if the mic isn't working any better. I know some people kind of commented in the chat, so I adjusted it, but let me know if it's not any better.
I suppose in the meantime, anyone have any questions that we can address while we're waiting here? Otherwise, I'll just keep blabbing about about what I'm cooking here. Cool. All right. So again, doing a stir fry like this is a really high heat cooking process. So that comes there pretty quickly. What I can do in the meantime, and I can do this because I've in the kitchen to do so, but some people might not. What I'm going to actually do is going to whip up my sauce real quick. So that is a combination of a little bit of rice vinegar, mostly in there for the acidity, but an absolute substitute for that would be, even just some lime juice or really any kind of vinegar that you have access to, that little bit of acidity. Then I threw in a little bit of low sodium soy sauce. That, of course, is going to give us that really distinct flavor. We do the low sodium, to stress the importance Natalie was talking about before. The majority of that sauce is just going to be about 1/3 of a cup of water. Get that in there. About a tablespoon of brown sugar. Now, you could use really any kind of sweetener of your choice there. I like brown sugar because I think it's the best flavor for this, but maple syrup, any would be a nice little sweetener in there. It's such a small amount in the grand scheme of things. And then I got about 2 teaspoons of cornstarch there. This is really just going to be, and I'm going to kind of sprinkle it in slowly in here. That is going to be just to thicken up our sauce a bit. My finger in there to get that last little bit. There we go. That's just going to thicken up the sauce a bit. And my last thing, and this is totally optional for you, a little bit of red pepper flakes just for a little bit of heat. And I'll go ahead and I'll step aside. Got veggies here. You can tell now they picked up a lot of color, which is really nice. I had turned that heat down just for a minute so I could talk about the sauce, but I'm going to crank it back up. And then once that pan is hot again, I'll go ahead and I'll toss in my broccoli and my carrots. The reason that I started with the bell pepper and the onion is because that gives us a nice kind of a base of flavor. And then when we add some other veggies in there, they'll pick up that nice color.
They said also your sound is in and out with movement, so they're getting the gist of it. Just the FYI.
No,
the mics are not going to be our best friend.
Gotcha. Sorry about that, folks. I move around a lot when I talk, so I'll try to not talk while I'm moving. While we're if we want to bring the camera back out wide for a second, Michelle, just so you can see what we're doing.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah, so you'll see I got a lot of steam coming off my pan because again, we're doing this nice high heat cooking. I'm going to go ahead now and add in that broccoli, which it already looks like this pan is like borderline overflowing. But the nice thing about a lot of our veggies, that content, they a little bit, even broccoli, our more fibrous stuff is gonna shrink a little bit more.
The other benefits of the broccoli too is many patients after treatment might be anemic, right? Low iron levels.
Yep.
So many people don't know that broccoli is rich in vitamin C, can actually help enhance our absorption of iron in the diet. So if you pair broccoli with beans, you pair broccoli with, your animal proteins at dinner, it can help enhance that absorption. So not only rich in calcium, which can help bone density, also rich in the vitamin C, which can help enhance that iron absorption.
Absolutely. And then, Michelle, if you want to bring the camera back in on the cutting board. Oh.
Cameras.
That's all good, folks. There's a million cameras in here that I got Michelle trying to run. So I've got my garlic just kind of roughly chopped here, and I'm realizing actually as I was cooking, when I wrote the recipe, we are actually supposed to cook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these veggies out into a bowl once they're cooked, and then we'll go ahead and we'll cook the shrimp, and then we'll assemble everything back together at the end. Doesn't really change the recipe. I got so excited talking about these vegetables, I realized I was doing it out of order. But folks, what I would recommend at home, if you're following along, go ahead, get that shrimp cooked first, then remove the shrimp out to a bowl. Just be a little easier so you want to get something quite so large. So I got my garlic chopped up there. Then I got this little clove of fresh ginger, which I'm going to go ahead and grate. I use just the inside of a teaspoon to kind of peel off that brown layer on the outside. And I mean, the fresh ginger is going to add so much nice flavor to it, but I also recognize that this takes a little bit of finger dexterity to do. And sometimes it's annoying to buy one ingredient for one recipe. So you could absolutely use like dry powdered ginger if you wanted to. In that case, then I believe the recipe calls for about a tablespoon of fresh ginger. We want to at about a third. We would do about a teaspoon of our dried ginger, just because that flavor is a little bit more concentrated. And then I got my microplane here where I'm just get this little pile, which ends up being right around the same size as my minced garlic.
And if you have extra, use it for, a ginger tea.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I'm thinking about just the flavor benefits, but of course, as a I can't think of the word. In an additional medicine. Thank you. Yes. It of course serves a fantastic purpose there. Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, sometimes, right? It's as I'll always keep going back to, food is supposed to be enjoyable, and so it can be really hard when you're going through treatment. If your foods that you used to really enjoy like aren't quite doing it for you anymore, like experimenting with some other different aromatics, right? Something like a ginger can help reignite a little bit of love for that food. So now I'm gonna have you vamp for like 20 seconds while I grab a bowl just to put these vegetables into. So sorry to put you on the spot.
What did you need, Max? You want me to stir?
Yeah, give it one stir just to. This is chef training for Natalie as well.
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, great. So then my last step here is I'm just going to go ahead and add, again, those aromatics, the ginger and the garlic. And those will cook super quickly. They probably really only need about 30 seconds or so on that heat. The kitchen here, if you were in person, would immediately start to smell like ginger and garlic. So I'm going to get those down towards the actual heat source.
Do you recommend putting that in after or in the beginning?
Yeah, so I always recommend with those more delicate flavors. I think, some people do, but I'll speak in generalities here. No one likes the taste of burnt garlic. So those really delicate, finely chopped things, the fresh garlic, the ginger, any fresh herbs that we were going to use, if you wanted to, you could certainly, I don't think it'd be out of place to throw in some like fresh cilantro into this recipe. I would do all those right at the end of the cooking process, or even in the case of the cilantro, just right on top when you're ready to serve, just because the flavors are so delicate in anything that's fresh. And then if you were powdered ginger or garlic powder, I would actually whisk those ingredients to the sauce, would be my recommendation. But so yeah, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn that heat off for just 1 second, get these vegetables out into a bowl. The other reason that I recommend doing the shrimp first is because you'll have a little bit of veggies into our pan here, but it's still going to be delicious. So yeah, I will go ahead. Let's put the heat back up in here. We can talk a little bit about the shrimp, I suppose, while we get that oil heating back up. Because as I mentioned, right, I know that sometimes shrimp can be a real concern for people from like a barrier to entry when it comes to cooking, right? Is our first thing. Yeah, absolutely. And then I know we're mentioning before even the question of if you should be buying it fresh versus frozen is always a question. Do you have any thoughts, Natalie, on, I mean, as a dietitian, how do we like to utilize our frozen foods?
We have to look at the reality, right? And things are expensive and things go bad if you don't eat them quick enough or they sit, right? So I always recommend frozen if you're looking for a cheaper option, if you're looking for things to last longer. They're the same nutrient content, maybe even a little bit better because they're not sitting on a truck or a cargo plane, they're not sitting somewhere for many days at a time. So most times they're flash frozen and put right in the bag. So always a good, advocate for frozen, canned, if you prefer.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about our shrimp, from a culinary standpoint, is I think they're actually pretty forgiving and easy to cook. The nice thing about this is you're pretty much just looking for it to turn that nice bright pink color, which you'll see right as it's in contact with my hot pan here. It's already mostly getting there. Picked up a little bit of that. The reason I like to say to do the shrimp first is because you'll notice some of these little black spots that's forming on the shrimp there are those remnants of the vegetables that were in our pan. But it's all going to end up in the same place anyway, so I'm not too worried about it.
So if you are doing frozen.
Yeah, so if you are going to use frozen shrimp,
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah. So if you're going to use frozen shrimp, what I recommend is you pretty much the preferred all the time is going to be to thaw in the refrigerator overnight. If you buy at ShopRite, I know they sell 1-2 pound bag. A pound of shrimp, which is perfect, right? Our serving of animal protein is usually about 4 ounces. This recipe makes 4 servings, so we're right in our happy spot right there. Let's say we're buying that bigger bag, right, to try to take advantage of some cost savings. What I'd recommend then is if you're not going to cook 2 pounds of shrimp at once, when you get home from the grocery store, right while it's still frozen, break that up into 2 separate bags. That way then we're not defrosting an entire bag of shrimp and then only using half of it and trying to refreeze, because refreezing always causes a little bit of concern from me. And so from here, got some nice color on the shrimp, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my pineapple in here now. Yeah, we love pineapple. Now this is frozen pineapple, so falls right into the same vein as our frozen shrimp conversation. You'll notice there's literally, it was still frozen, so now there's this nice like evaporation that's occurring there. So I suppose while this is happening, Michelle, if we want to go back to a more favorable camera angle, we could go back to the whole room.
You also mentioned that you could do canned pineapple as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to do the can, just rinse. If it comes in a syrup or it comes in a, heavy syrup, sugar-free syrup, just rinse it off really good to remove the excess.
Yeah, absolutely. Or in the case of this, right? These are pineapple chunks and 100% pineapple juice, no sugar added, right? This is an 8-ounce can. It's about equivalent to a cup of our frozen pineapple. And of course, if you wanted to use fresh, especially this time of year, right? The summer, so maybe you're buying some nice fresh pineapple, but especially if you're one or 2 people at home, right? Hard to eat the whole thing of pineapple before it goes bad. I encounter this a watermelon, same kind of problem.
And then with the oil, so you're using sesame oil.
Yes.
You chose for today. But if somebody wants to add avocado oil, olive oil, is there a preference regarding which one would taste better with this recipe? Or
for sesame oil, because this is sort of the more traditional choice when it comes to like kind of an Asian inspired recipe. But yeah, any kind of vegetable oil is really going to have that nice benefit there, right? Because it's lower in the saturated fats, more filled with our healthier mono and polyunsaturated fats. So that's going to be a type of oil that is liquid at room temperature. So in this case, sesame oil, right? But olive oil, avocado oil, even canola oil, right? If you have it on hand, absolutely fair game.
There's so much misinformation online too about the right oils to use, and people are so afraid to use sesame oil or peanut oil, olive oil. And I just tell people any of those oils are fantastic. We recommend avocado, olive, and canola first, and because of that poly and monounsaturated fat content, which is great for heart health. But love it.
Absolutely. Michelle, if you want to zoom back here on my wok, what you'll notice now, introduce those vegetables in there so we get this nice little bit of color. I wanted to before I now pour my little soy sauce mixture over it. That is gonna dim that color a little bit, but so still on this nice high heat. I'll go ahead, pour that sauce right in there. All those ingredients already whisked together. A little bit of residual on our bottom here. And just give this a little bit of a stir just to get everything nice and evenly coated with that sauce. Notice we got all these nice bright colors in there. By throwing the pineapple right at the end, some of the juices from the pineapple kind of naturally incorporate into the shrimp, so the shrimp will have picked up a little bit on that sweetness. Now everything's not getting that nice little mixture, the salty and the sour, that sauce. And so while that is simmering, last thing, Michelle, you want to come over to the cutting board. I do have a green onion here. It just makes a nice little garnish. So you can utilize pretty much the entire length of that. I might take off right at the top end, just because that tends to get dried out first. Then we can just slice this into little rings. And then I also off to the side here, which I'll put on top in a moment, dry roasted unsalted nuts, which I think makes a great topping, adds a texture to our dish. But of course, we know there's a lot of health benefits associated with nuts and seeds, right, Natalie? Yeah.
Same benefits, right? Those unsaturated fats. It's just great protein source if you're, vegetarian and you're not doing animal products. Adding nuts, peanuts, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, all those things are great for that protein content.
Absolutely. So in that case, then what I will do is go ahead and turn off the heat on here.
I feel like these mixed dishes too, like these one pot meals, are so much less intimidating.
Absolutely.
When you're not a strong cook or you don't really know what to do, the timing, just like you did, you're like, oh, I should have started the shrimp first, right? But I think it's nice to see that even you mess up.
Oh yeah, I definitely did that on purpose. That's the
figured.
We'll go there. And so you'll see, I got this nice big circle that I never get to use. So do it in there to get this nice color. Go ahead, I'll throw those scallions and the peanut texture. You'll notice, right? You're looking, and we get this nice bit of color. And then what I'll come in and do is sprinkle the scallions on top. Nice little bit of green, and again, it adds a little bit of both visual texture, right? A nice appearance of our dish. But then when we bite into it, we'll get that nice bit of the green onion on there. And then again, these dry roasted unsalted peanuts. Again, nice little pop of texture on top. And then that one tilted.
Ooh, look at that.
Good view. Perfect. All right. Hey, I did pretty good on time there. My goal was to be done cooking around 7:15, so not bad. Folks, I apologize for the issues. I hope most of what we've been saying has been clean. Natalie, any questions from anybody that we can answer?
So one came in, and it's some suggestions for future webinars for just similar topics.
Absolutely.
But there might be a couple questions we can answer here today. So,
sure.
They were questioning safe knife skills, best tools to have in our kitchen. So do you have like a top, 2 tools that are like so versatile in the kitchen that people should have?
Absolutely. I'm going to put this in front of you for safety. My number one suggestion is a good knife. And a good knife does not necessarily mean an expensive knife. It means a knife that you are comfortable using. It feels good in your hands. I highly recommend, if you have the ability to, go to a store, even a department store, right? A Sears or something that has a kitchen department. Go there and ask to hold the knife and, practice chopping with it a little bit, because ultimately this is the tool that more than anything else you're going to be using in your kitchen. So yeah, a good knife is always good. And then again, you do not need to buy fancy nonstick woks to do this kind of cooking, right? A good saute pan, and again, that meaning a saute pan that you could then easily pick up, right? Everyone loves a good cast iron skillet, but those also weigh 10 or 20 pounds. So you're trying to pick that up, food around, and it can be a little difficult for some people. So again, a good pan that you are comfortable, what I'll say, wielding around your kitchen would be huge. Those are my go-tos. I could probably talk about kitchen equipment all day, but I probably shouldn't.
The question she had was, or this person had, was about protein and like amount of time it can stay in the fridge, right, thawing. How long can things be on the counter before they spoil? So I think kind of basic information like that.
Absolutely. So we'll address the first part of that question first, which was how to defrost it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So when it comes to defrosting the fridge, was frozen, I would say 24 hours to defrost in the fridge. Like obviously if you're doing a whole turkey, that's going to take a little longer to defrost. Michelle was telling me that y'all couldn't hear me, so I will hold my microphone like this and hopefully it's a little better. Yeah. Defrost in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 pounds of meat overnight gets the job done, maybe up to 48 hours. But at that point, you definitely want to be cooking it. You don't want to refreeze. That can introduce some food safety concerns. When in doubt, when you're buying fresh meat at the grocery stores, I'm thinking like a package of ground turkey, it'll usually say use or freeze by on there. I would follow that recommendation always. And then generally speaking, frozen proteins, I mean, they're really good in your freezer. I don't want to say forever, but unless they get visual like freezer burn on them, proteins can hang out in your freezer for a really long time. And then the last part of that, I think, was there a bit in there about leftovers as well?
You say we put this dish in the fridge.
Yeah.
How long do we have till we need to throw it out?
If you're listening to the USDA, which we probably should, leftovers are typically good for about 4 to 5 days. Okay. That's kind of that sweet spot. Even if then the food is still safe after that point, we start to lose a little bit of texture and flavor as food just kind of naturally breaks down, even in the refrigerator. That being, I know. There's no that being said to that statement. 4 to 5 days in the refrigerator. My go-to sweet spot for leftovers.
Yep. And if there is any neutropenia happening, during treatment, after treatment, your blood count is low, you're less likely to fight off illness, that number would be much less, right? So you're going to take even more precaution when it comes to leftovers, how long it's sitting in the fridge, making sure your meats are cooked to temperature. Maybe that's an idea, moving forward with safe cooking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things for meat.
I mean, hey, you'll notice on my arm here, I got my food thermometer, which I don't typically need to use because that's a nice visual indicator. But yeah, cooking our proteins to a safe internal temperature would possibly be a great chop and chat in the future. All right.
Another question we have is, can we get a written recipe? So we can probably send out the recipe from today, right?
Written recipe, absolutely. We can make sure that everyone from the webinar who was signed up or otherwise joined today, that we can get some copies out. And then certainly you can always reach out to your Smilow team if there's any questions about that.
Yep. And then the third question was, is there a limit to how much protein your body can absorb from one meal? So
great question.
It's actually a really good question. So when we look at protein needs for each person, it's very different, right? Depending on if you have kidney disease or if you're on active treatment undergoing chemotherapy or you're going to the gym 5 days a week, right? All these things matter when we look at your estimated protein needs. I usually tell people to aim for around 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. Obviously, too much of any one thing is not a good thing. Our kidneys have to process, filter out these foods and nutrients. So it's important to get more consistent intake of protein throughout the day versus trying to get all of that protein in one meal at dinner, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of us lack protein at breakfast and lunch, and then we eat, a lot of meat or a lot of protein at dinner because we're so hungry. So I think if you start to look at ways to incorporate more protein from eggs, beans, nuts, seeds earlier in the day to get more of that consistent intake of protein to support muscle and tissue and, repair and all that stuff, we need it.
Oh, and absolutely. And I mean, we made this at dinner time, but this makes a great kind of lunch that you can bring as leftovers like to work the next day, right? It travels pretty well. It reheats in the microwave very well. And then certainly we could up the protein in here even more if we wanted to, among other benefits, right? By serving this with like a nice whole grain, right? So brown rice comes to mind as an option, but certainly any kind of grain that you wanted to do with this, quinoa, millet, farro, anything. And then if the fiber is too much of a concern, I would even say to make it kind of a more complete meal, we could do it over a white rice, right? From a digestive standpoint, it might be more tolerated.
You know, get,
Mhm.
but just looking to use more canned fruits. You know, canned vegetables might have less of that fiber content, be a little easier to digest, not have the skins and all like the roughage that is a little harder to tolerate if you are having issues.
Absolutely. And on the conversation of tolerance, I guess I wanted to discuss a few different swaps that we could do maybe for like allergy or intolerance reasons. So soy sauce it does actually typically contain gluten. It contains wheat, but tamari is a gluten-free alternative to soy sauce that you could use instead. Tastes exactly the same. If the peanuts on there were a concern, sesame seeds makes a great substitute as well. Still get some of those nice nutrition benefits. Still get that nice texture. And then, of course, a vegetarian version of this would be instead of utilizing our shrimp, my first thought is to soybeans, whether it's in the form of tofu or even just a bag of frozen edamame would work really well on there. And you could cook it for a block of tofu. You could cook for about the same amount of time as the shrimp. It'll get that nice crispiness to it. The edamame you could throw in with the frozen pineapple, and it would all kind of come together into this nice, really nice and vegetarian dish.
Breast cancer, you know, survivors listening to that have, you know, a history of estrogen positive breast cancer. There's a lot of mixed information in the media about soy foods that contain phytoestrogens, right? Which includes the edamame, the tofu. There's sometimes a little apprehension there with those types of foods. So I provide a lot of education in clinic that those foods are safe. They're actually potentially protective and beneficial for women with estrogen positive breast cancer or history of estrogen positive breast cancer. So incorporating up to 2 servings a day of those tofu, edamame, miso, tempeh, any of those products is actually very beneficial for all of us. So don't be afraid to incorporate those things if you enjoy them.
Absolutely. And then my last it's not so much a substitution, but just to making your life easier. Obviously, I love to talk about the knife skills and improving your confidence in the kitchen, but I also recognize that maybe it's not realistic that you're going to come home and chop vegetables for 20 or 30 minutes, right? Whether that's because your schedule is busy or you're experiencing fatigue, right? So when in doubt, frozen vegetables are your best friend. I have a bag in the freezer behind me of frozen stir fry mix, 1 pound of frozen stir fry mix. It's still got the broccoli in there. It's got the onion. It's got the carrots. The frozen bag I got from the grocery store actually has some water chestnuts in there. Not something that I would actually almost ever buy fresh, but frozen. Really convenient. Some additional veggies into there. So yeah, utilize frozen veggies.
I think too, a lot of survivor patients, they're a little nervous to do it without doing it 110%.
Yep.
Right? When you've had a diagnosis, people put a lot of pressure on nutrition, and it can be a form of stress, right? Because you want to do the best for your body, you want to provide your body the best nutrition, but you have to take that first step, right? You can't have that pressure of doing all organic and all fresh and all from a local farm, because that's just not realistic and ideal for many people. So I think looking at that first step you can take, whether it's canned beans, you know, microwavable brown rice that you use to throw together, start somewhere, build that confidence, and then maybe down the line you're able to kind of add more variety and add more things in. But I think just do something to improve, right? Just one thing, a huge step.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or anything that we can address from folks? Great. You're getting very good with that iPad there.
No, they said, thanks so much. It tastes so delicious.
So good. I'm glad that folks were cooking along at home, maybe. Awesome. Yes. Wonderful.
Questions that you have, feel free to throw it in here. We'll definitely answer them.
I think what we could do maybe in the meantime, while we're seeing if anyone has any other questions, if we wanted to pull back up the PowerPoint real quick to share some of those, the resources.
Good remembering.
Yep. I try to keep us on agenda here, and then Michelle, thank you for fussing with technology back there.
So just some websites, again, that AICR website that has great resources, which also has something called a Healthy 10 Challenge, which it just kind of gives you some tasks to do every day to achieve, you know, more optimal health. And then I also provided some recipe links to look into, some cookbook ideas that we provide to a lot of our patients. And then additionally, some resources at the bottom of this page. So again, I provide nutrition counseling through Smilow Survivorship Clinic, which is a multidisciplinary clinic that has an oncology physical therapist, oncology dietitian, oncology social worker, and an oncology APRN. And we meet with people and kind of tackle all of their concerns from every angle. So not just looking at the cancer diagnosis and the treatment they had, but looking at how to rebuild this person and help them get back to a new normal. As well as the integrated medicine clinic, which is just great free resources, affordable resources for oncology patients at Smilow.
Awesome.
Right,
Fantastic.
look at the chat again, make sure there's no questions coming up. Just positive feedback.
Hey.
Great to hear. This is the first one for us. So.
Yeah. I appreciate everyone bearing with us for the technical issues, among other things. Again, I hope the opportunity to try this recipe at home. I think it's a really fantastic one. I think what we could do, Michelle, if you want to go to the next slide, so people know what the next presentation coming up is, and then I suppose we could hang out on here in case there's any last minute questions. But otherwise, I think we are all set. Right around when we were shooting a wrap up, we did pretty good.
Just representing Juneteenth. We're not doing something next week, but we're going to do one the following week on June 26th. Again, a great group of providers that are going to provide an awesome educational webinar. So mark that on your calendars and just register via the Zoom, just like you did today.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. All righty. Well, folks, if you're hopping off, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, if you have any questions, please, Natalie and I will hang out for a few more minutes. We can address them, and otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of their week.